this week, he says.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, and thank you for joining me with studying this week's Torah portion. I'm sharing you a talk of the Rebbe, a synopsis, and only one part of the talk of the Rebbe that's printed in Likutei Sichos, volume 21, section 2, the second part. We studied the portion of Tetzaveh. Tetzaveh mostly is speaking about the garments of the priests. There is two sets of garments, one set of garments for the regular priest, and the other one for the high priest. How many? The regular priest wears 4 garments. The high priest wears 8 garments. So we will discuss some of the garments and see how the Torah relates to them. The Rebbe says, if you look in the text, towards the end of concluding all of the 8 garments, the Torah says the following: Vehoyu al Aaron ve'al bonov, they shall be placed upon Aaron and his sons, bevoyom el oyel moed, when they enter the tent of meeting, oy begishtom el hamizbeach, or when they come to the altar, leshores bakodesh, to serve in a holy way, velo yisu ovoin vomeisu, they should not carry a sin and die. Rashi says, Holomadeto, from here you learn that a Kohen who serve, leshores mean to serve, without garments, missing one of the garments, chayav misa, he deserves to die. He's going to be dead by a heavenly court. In other words, you have 8 garments, one of them is missing, they ran out. It was still in the dry cleaner. They lost it. If he enters or he serves in the temple, he is going to be liable for the worst punishment possible. All the commentators are asking a simple question, but the Rebbe is moving this question towards Rashi. 10 verses earlier, in verse 35, this is 43, so it's 7 verses earlier, the Torah says the following: Vehoyo al Aaron leshores, it should be on Aaron to serve, venishma koiloi bevoel hakodesh lifnei Hashem uvetzeisoi velo yomus. It should be the coat with the bells should be placed upon Aaron when he enters and when he exits, so he shouldn't die. Rashi says, and all the Talmud tells us, any priest or a high priest who serve God with missing one of the garments is liable to death. Says the commentators, why does God has to teach us a second time the requirements to wear the garments and the punishment is so severe? So the simple answer would be, as many commentators explain, sometimes God wants to make it very strict, so he repeat the warning. You find it in many aspects. This is my addition with regards to coming close to Mount Sinai. Before God came down Mount Sinai, he tells Moshe, I believe 6 times he warned them against making the Jews come closer or touching the mountain. There are many times, basar b'chalav, milk and meat. There are 3 times it appears. So there are warnings that God is very strict, and he makes sure to repeat it over and over. So could be God wants to remind the Kohen and the high priest to not take it lightly. Okay. Even though it doesn't make sense to me, because God says the punishment is so severe, that should be enough, but you can explain that. But the Rebbe says, Rashi says, Holomadeto, from the second place. From here you derive that he cannot serve without garments. What do you mean, Holomadeto? Oh, I already know it 7 verses earlier. It's not different book. It's 7 verses. Do you understand the question? Commentators try to explain in many ways. Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, Re'em, explains that the earlier is talking about 6 out of 10. That's why it says Aaron. It should be placed on Aaron. It's the conclusion of teaching about 6 out of 10. Here it says Aaron uvonov, Aaron and his sons. So now it teaches us not only Aaron, but also his children, is the regular Kohen. And in addition, it's talking about the last 2. What are the last 2? The tzitz and the pants. These are 2 that are mentioned after the first warning. So the first warning is talking about 6 garments out of 8, and it's talking about Aaron specifically. The second warning is talking about the last two garments, and it's about Aaron and his sons. Says the Rebbe, it doesn't fit with Rashi. Rashi in the first place says, you learn from here that Aaron and his son, a Kohen or a high priest that enters with any of the garments missing, is liable to death. So in other words, maybe you can explain it in the text, but you cannot, Rashi clearly did not agree with that. We need to understand, according to Rashi, why Rashi says from the second verse you learn the prohibition where it's already mentioned earlier. And according to Rashi, it's a whole new teaching, even though before Rashi said already that Aaron and his sons are liable to death punishment. Do you understand the question? Am I flying height here? Says Rabbi, maybe we can explain the difference. The first place it says when he enters, the prohibition is to enter missing garments. Here it says yeshamesh. Yeshamesh means serving. So the first place is the warning against missing garment, even just to enter the tent of meeting, doing nothing, just coming to watch. The second one is telling us, even if you entered or dressed and you took off one garment and now you want to serve, the prohibition is you're not allowed to serve. Do you understand this? Says the Rebbe lists 4 reasons why it doesn't make sense. I'm going to give you just some of them. Number one, how is it possible to serve without entering? You must enter to serve. You cannot enter without serving. And therefore, if the prohibition is against entering, you cannot serve without entering. So if the prohibition is against entering, it's obviously prohibition against serving. Number two, the Torah, the text itself, says the Rebbe, is clearly the first place. It says, I'm sorry, the second one is the when they enter, or when they enter to serve. So the prohibition is here, inclusive all entering and serving. So you cannot say one is for prohibition against entering, the other is about serving.
Why would they enter without serving? Just to stand to see?
I don't know, yeah, to meet, to tell his friend that his wife gave birth. Who knows? Then the next question, the Rebbe says, God prohibited anyone entering unless he comes to serve the temple. So how is it possible for someone to enter without serving? So it doesn't make sense that they are two separate laws. To summarize, some explain that there is 2 prohibitions. One is to prohibit entering, the second is to prohibit serving. Says the Rebbe, one verse already says both is forbidden, number one. Number two, you cannot enter unless you go to serve. And therefore, there must be another reason. And Rashi says from here you learn it's something new. It's already mentioned. Did you understand the question? To me, the answer, and the Rebbe is bringing different other answers, but I want to make the point of the answer, which is unbelievable. The Rebbe says there are 3 garments where God is giving a unique mission about Aaron's wearing. And they are the me'il, the coat, the ephod. The ephod is an apron that he wore on his back. Here you see the picture. This is the ephod. This part is the front. This is the back. You see how he wore it? You see it here? It's only covering the back, not the front. Mm-hmm. The front is open. You see that? The ephod, but the ephod had 2 straps. You see the 2 straps? On top of the strap, this was on his shoulders here, he had 2 large precious stones. Each one had engraved in them 6 names of the 12 tribes. So he carries on his shoulders, and the ephod. Ephod is a name for an apron for protective gear for the back. Had 2 straps that on top here, there were 6 names, on top of it had 6 names. That's the one. Number 2 is the me'il. Me'il is the coat with the bells, as we'll discover soon. And the next one is Choshen, the breastplate. Here's a picture of the breastplate that has 12 stones. Here is the breastplate. And the breastplate had 12 different colors, precious stones. Each one had the name of one tribe and the three fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov's
So
name.
he had 2 tablets and then this as well?
Not what tablets? He had 2 stones on top of his shoulders.
Right.
Each stone had 6 names on the right and
He
left.
had this.
And then, in addition, he had this, right?
Very heavy, the whole thing.
No, it wasn't that big. It was 1 tefach. It was small. It's big, but it wasn't that.
Did he have to dress himself or was he helped?
He can be helped. He was helped. By the way, the 8 days, Moshe had to dress them every day. We discussed it many years back. Says the Rebbe, if you read the text about those 3, I must read it to you because it's something only the Rebbe can find. Nobody think about it. In verse 12, chapter 28, that's the verse that the chapter we're dealing with. In verse 12, he's talking about the ephod, the apron that covers the back. The Torah says, I'm sorry, Yud Beis. I'm reading, the first part is, you place the stones on top of the straps, and it should be, Venoso Aaron et shmotam lifnei Hashem al shtei ksefov lezikoron. Aaron must carry the name of the Jewish tribes on his shoulders, as if he's carrying them on his shoulders, as a remembrance, lezikoron, to remember, lezikoron, lifnei Hashem lezikoron. So they should always be remembered by God. That's one of the 8 garments. You understand this? Bob, do you understand? In other words, the Torah tells us, what's the purpose of the ephod, of this garment? To have 2 stones on top of the shoulders, as to carry the names of the Jewish people as a memorial before God. When it comes to the Choshen, to the breastplate, verse 29 and 30, same chapter. Venoso Aaron es mishpat bnei Yisrael al libo lifnei Hashem tamid. May Aaron carry the names of the tribes on his heart, lifnei Hashem, before God, tamid, always. And the third one is Me'il. When it comes to Me'il, it says, Vehoyo, that's verse 35, Vehoyo al Aaron Leshores v'nishma koiloi bevoyoi el hakodesh lifnei Hashem. It should be the me'il, the coat, should be placed over. Aaron should wear it and should be on his body continuous when he enters before God, when he leaves. Says the Rebbe, there is something unique about those 3: ephod, the apron with the 2 stones, the choshen, the breastplate with the 12 stones, and the me'il, the coat. That there is a uniqueness about them reminding God about the Jewish people. And they are different than the other 5 garments. The other 5 garments are there to serve God. You wear pants, you wear a belt, you wear a hat, you wear a shirt. You know why you do that? Because you're standing before God. You have to cover your body in a beautiful way. But those 3, the breastplate, the ephod, and the me'il, an extra coat covering with the bells, as we'll see in a moment, are there just to remind God always about the Jewish people. In other words, there is difference between those 5 and the other 3. The other 3 are not serving God. They are there just reminding God about the Jewish people. So when he enters, just entering the temple, before he does any service, he already reminding God about the Jewish people. The other garments are there when he serves God. He brings an altar, a sacrifice, he's fixing the menorah, he's putting the showbread, the 12 loaves of bread on the table. It's not about to show God, to remind God about the Jewish people. Says the Rebbe, that's why Rashi says in the first place, when he's talking about Aaron, lo yikones. He's not allowed to enter missing any of the garments. The second time, where it says that it's forbidden and there is a death sentence, it says he's not allowed to serve God. Because the first part is talking about Aaron himself. Aaron himself He's talking about entering, just entering, missing one of those three is not doing what God wants. But the other five, only when he served God in one of the services in the temple, without them, he is disobeying God. Says the Rebbe, according to Rashi, I'm giving you the gist of the discussion. It's so beautiful. Says the Rebbe, according to Rashi, if someone, a high priest, enter missing one of the five garments, he didn't serve. He entered for a service. He's not liable to death punishment. If he's missing pants, he's missing a shirt, he's missing the tzitz, he's missing the hat or the gartel or the belt, as long as before he served or going up the altar or lighting the menorah, he puts it on, he's done. But if he's entering without the breastplate, if he's entering without the ephod, without those two stones, if he's entering without the coat, just entering without is causing God anger and is liable to that sentence. Why? Because those three garments are not there to serve God in physical act, but to remind God about the existence of the Jewish people. So the high priest is serving God with those three just by being in the holy temple, in the tabernacle. Now we're going to see the Yeino Shel Torah, the wine part of the Torah. Yes, Harry.
Question one: if he goes in without the three garments, but he hadn't done anything yet, can he put them on?
The three?
Yeah.
If he entered, he's already liable to death.
Okay, so the next question is.
But the other five, if he only entered,
Okay.
he put them on before he served, he's good.
Okay.
That's according to Rashi. I'm not sure it's according to Halacha, but according to Rashi, there is a major distinction between the three and the five. And Rashi says in the first three, when it talks about Aaron himself, he says, Loiko anichnas, he's liable to death. The second time he says, Ameshamesh, serving God is missing, is liable, because there is a difference between the five and the three. Yes.
The question goes back, God needs to remember Israel.
Right. In this universe, God wants it, yes. It's be one of the there is always this question exists, right? God is very kind to us. How come He's not blessing us with going back to Mashiach times? He wants us to do our part. And therefore, He wants us to do it exactly in the way He commanded us. That's how we serve God, not ourselves. And therefore, if someone deviates, this is a very, very strict. So the second time around is not to make it harsher. Rashi says, Holomadeto, learn from here. It's something new. The first time is talking about Aaron. And therefore, he's not allowed to enter missing, because those three garments he was talking about. Here, we're talking about the Aaron and his sons. His sons are four. And Aaron, it comes to include another five that he's not allowed to serve in the temple, missing one of the five. Did you understand so far?
But I thought you can't enter without it serving.
Huh?
I thought you can't enter.
No, he's entering to serve.
So
And he's missing one of the five.
Yeah.
And so another Kohen says, here, take mine, I'm leaving. I'm going out. He's allowed to.
Of the five, not the three.
But he's already.
But not the three for the high priest.
Sure, we know, but the
No, that's the uniqueness of the three. It does not apply to the other five. He can enter for serving, and he realizes he has a hole. You're not allowed to serve with a pants with hole. So another one says to him, oh, here, take my pants. Take off the pants and give it to him, and he's walking out. According to Rashi, the prohibition for the regular priest or the high priest outside those three is not to serve missing garments. And therefore, he can enter. He shouldn't enter, but if he entered, that's okay. He's not liable to that. Says the Rebbe, the high priest is representing the Jewish people before God. There are two types of representing God. The high priest had two functions. One is the very existence of the high priest, the fact that he wore those stones here or wore the coat. In other words, he didn't serve. He just entered. Just being there is enough to remind the Jewish people about the Jewish people. And then there is another category of serving God, sacrifices, menorah, bread, etc. Says the Rebbe, the high priests represent the angels that represent the Jewish people before God. There are two types of Jews. There are Jews who are represented before God for what they have done. They do mitzvahs, they serve, like the high priest serving in the temple, bringing sacrifices, lighting a menorah, etc. But then there's another category, and that category is just the very existence of a Jew. He didn't do anything. He didn't do a mitzvah. He's just entering. the Holy Temple. He just came into the universe. The very reason that God had sent the neshama to the universe is a reminder before God that the person is very special. Just like the high priest, by wearing those stones on top of his shoulders with the ephod and the breastplate, the choshen and the me'il, is alone a zikaron. All three, it says zikaron. It doesn't mention by the other part. It's a reminder to God, continuous forever. So when you have a Jew, a type of Jew representing one of those three garments that is just here, he entered the universe. Universe is like a temple, and he did not do any work. It is alone a good connection to God that deserves to have all the blessings. What's the message? Obviously, says the Rebbe, that when you meet a Jew who says, I do not belong, I don't know the tradition, I didn't do anything, we tell them you are like one of those garments, all three garments, and the Rebbe goes on through the details of the three garments. The breastplate, it says, V'hoyo al liboy, on his heart, represent people who are connecting to God through their heart. They love God. The shoulders represent the back, because it started in the back. What does the back mean? Someone who is challenged in serving God. They are serving God, but it's with great challenges. It's very, very big difficulties. And then you have the one representing by the coat. The coat had bells that made noise. People like to make a lot of noise and do nothing else. It says that the coat atoned for the sins of people who are wicked people. Says the Rebbe, you have three types of Jews. You have those Jews who are on the heart. They're always connected to the heart, the emotions. You have people who are on the shoulders representing the back, people who are challenged, and it's very difficult for everything they do. And you have a Jew who doesn't even do anything. He's still a wicked person. All of them, just the very existence of their life being in this universe that represented like the temple is sufficient that God will remember them continuous without any stop.
How does
And
the
that's
coat become the wicked people? What's
because the coat had bells on the bottom.
Yeah.
And it says, "V'nishma koiloi bevoyo el hakodesh," that the high priest, when he walked, had to have noises,
yeah.
use bells. It contradicts Torah way to be humbled, and everything you do should be
Okay.
quiet.
Okay. So everybody-
Therefore, it must represent people who are hollow, like those pomegranates and apples, whatever it was, the metal, the gold bells. It represented people who are empty, and whenever they do something, the whole world needs to hear about. It represent wicked people,
Okay.
and he atones for the wicked people. Says the Rebbe, you have people who serve God, like the five garments. You have Jews, v'nichnas, just they enter to the universe, like entering the tent of meeting. Just that is sufficient for God to remember them and bless them and give them all the good. And that's why God uses those three garments representing the different categories of Jewish people. I hope I did
Thank you, Rabbi.
do a disservice explaining this essence of the talk of the Rebbe. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
Oh,